WNDS Sports and Tri-State Megabucks present Candlepin Skins. It's bowling with a whole new twist as New England's best bowlers battle for cash prizes in every box. Candlepin Skins is produced in conjunction with the New Hampshire Candlepin Bowling Association. And now your hosts, Doug Brown and Dan Murphy.
Hi, everybody, and welcome once again to the Londonderry Bowling Center here in Londonderry, New Hampshire. Another edition of Candlepin Skins here on the Winds of New England. Thanks very much for joining us, Doug Brown, along with Dan Murphy. Last week, Joe Ashline and Jim Flynn advanced. Joe Ashline finished a relatively comfortable first, but the story really was Jim Flynn in second as he needed and got a double strike in the last box to advance.
That's right. Not to outshine Joe Ashline. He had a tremendous finish also, but Jim Flynn, knowing needed double strike and was able to get it, just amazing.
So Joe Ashline and Jim Flynn both returned today, and they will be joined by Steve Daniell from Salem, New Hampshire, and John Janowicz from Lowell, Massachusetts. John making his first appearance here on the Winds of New England. And let's check the rules now for Candlepin Skins. Just to review them for you, our four bowlers compete individually, one box at a time. In each box, there is a dollar value assigned. The high score in the box wins the dollar value, the skin assigned to that box. If the high score is a tie by two or more bowlers, then the money carries over to the following box, and of course it can keep carrying over with ties and increase the jackpot. Total pinfall important in our two-game match. The top two finishers in total pinfall, of course, return next week and get a chance to keep returning and earn more money through the Skins bonus program. All right, so we've got two games coming up here on Candlepin Skins. Our four bowlers are set to go. Dan and I think are ready to go, so we'll be back here at the Londonderry Bowling Center after these messages. Here is John Janowicz. Start today's show on Candlepin Skins. John making his first appearance with us. And Steve Daniell, who's been here before, but not for a little while.
Wow. Misses the head pin, leaves just the head pin standing. Nice break. For Steve.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
John Janowicz likes that. He gave it the little pump fist after recording his first mark. And here it is. Beautifully played, catching the head pin on the inside. Steve Daniell got his as well, of course. So two spares up, and we are off and running here. Joe Ashline and Jim Flynn, our two returning bowlers from last week.
And we will have a carryover right off the bat.
No spare for Joe. And not for Jim either. Two spares and two nines. I neglected to mention during the open the dollar values for the boxes in each game here on Candlepin Skins. Of course, we have a carryover here in the first box, but the first three boxes are worth $10 each. Boxes 4, 5, and 6 are worth $15 each. Boxes 7, 8, and 9 are worth $25 each. And the 10th box in each game is worth $50 each. So because of the carryover, this second box now worth $20. Steve Daniell unable to convert. Can John Janowicz? No.
Oh, wow.
9 box for Steve. And John with 10. John has a really exaggerated turnover on his hand as he releases the ball. He really gets under it and turns it over.
There's a lot of breaking from right to left because of that, but could have had two spares in a row just as easy. Hit the four horsemen, just didn't carry the 7 pin.
Jim Flynn gets the strike. Had to be patient, but it counts, and it may win him $20 unless Joe Ashline can match it. He does not. So give that $20 skin, the first of the day, to Jim Flynn.
Good try, Joe. 2 more.
And an $8 for Joe Ashline. Here's Jim Flynn's slow motion strike in slower motion. Right on the head pin, dead on it. That could have been a spread eagle or a 5-leave. He's
Right.
Oh, John Janowicz really spun that ball into the pocket.
Leaves just a 7-pin.
Steve Daniell goes Brooklyn side. He has the triangle. John for the spare. He's got it. Most guys, when they make their almost for Steve. Most guys, when they make their first appearance with us here, especially if it's their first ever appearance on television, are very happy to get here. Many of them spend years trying to get here to make their first appearance, and we've had several guys in this group that are making their first appearance on television, as John is, and he's just really excited to be here. That's nice to see. Very pumped up about appearing on the show, and he's off to a good start. Joe Ashline with a strike, his first mark, and he will take the skin worth $10.
Way to go, Joe.
Jim Flynn is working on a strike. Fill it with 8. $9. Here's Joe Ashline once again. A thin hit on the Brooklyn side.
Got a lot of mixing action there, and the 5-pin finally going. Steve Daniell on lane 30 now.
Oh,
And
big ball.
He's
He's
good
got
for a
it.
strike.
This fourth box worth $15. John Janowicz on a spare drives it right through the center. $8 for John.
And 47 through 4.
And here's Steve Daniell's strike. Just tap. I actually got a double tap on the 7-pin.
Wanted to make sure it was going to go down.
Jim Flynn. Thin hit. Look out. Still mixing. And the 4-pin will stay there.
All right.
Joe Ashline. Oh, how did he go around it? Joe thought he had that one.
That would have been a double strike for Joe, too.
Jim Flynn with the spare. That'll give the $15 skin to Steve Daniell with the strike. And Joe takes the spare. So marks all over the place here in the early going. Joe just shaking his head coming back. He couldn't believe that 5-pin stayed up. Fifth box worth $15.
Oh, look better than that. 7, 8, and 10 left. Possibilities with the wood.
John's got to wait for the wood, though, and he may have a while to wait here. Actually, if it stops right there, that's not bad. Take a run at it. Nope, missed it. Trying to sweep it. Oh, good out. Steve Daniell bidding for the spare on the half Worcester. That was on a strike, so he gets a 9 fill out of it. Well, maybe it wasn't there for John. 8 for John, 10 for Steve. And now Joe Ashline and Jim Flynn both come up, both working on spares, as you see.
And the skin wide open. Just a 10 box up there.
Joe calls his own match. You might have heard him say, uh-oh, right after he let that one go.
Uh-oh for Jim Flynn, though. 5, 7, 8 left. 7 to fill on his spare.
Good try, good try.
And the follow-up spare, and that will win the skin. For Jim Flynn, $15 worth. Joe Ashline takes a 9, and that will take us to a break. Here on Candlepin Skins, a great four-way battle going right now. Jim Flynn with the spare in the 5th takes that $15 skin, and we will return on Candlepin Skins in a minute. Steve Daniell, box number 6, $15 skin here in game 1. And with the strike, maybe, yes! Just enough of a turn for that wood to hit the 5-pin. John Janowicz.
Good bid for a strike, but...
Well, he got the 5-pin, but still has the 7 and 10 to contend with. Possibilities here.
It's going to be low on the wood, though. Too high, and the ball's going to fly around the 7-pin.
Oh! Went way up high on the wood and...
Almost made it.
Yeah. Instead, it's a 10. Here's Steve Daniell's ball. Watch the pin, the wood, come around right here. Just enough to tap the bottom of the 5-pin. Jim Flynn bidding for one. Joe Ashline with a chance to steal, and he has a 9-drop also. 2 9-drops, 2 thundering 9-drops. But the skin goes to Steve Daniell for $15. Spare for Jim Flynn. Spare for Joe Ashline.
That was a 9 fill on Jim's spare also. It's going to help his cause a little bit, increase his lead.
$25 skin now here in the 7th. Steve Daniell on a strike. Boy, what a break. What a break. Look at this.
Oh. Almost a double. Leaves just the head pin for a spare.
Gets it. Spare on strike for Steve Daniell. And John works that out for an 8-box. Both Joe Ashline and Jim Flynn working on spares here. Joe with a quick glance at the scoreboard, operated by Cindy Sissom here at Londonderry Bowling Center, so that the bowlers and the fans here know exactly where everybody stands. Oh, Jim Flynn right through the center. He actually got a little break there. Could have been a 1-5 punch out. He stole a couple of extra pins.
With the wood behind the 3-pin, Joe might have a chance at this. No, that wasn't quite deep enough.
And Jim was trying to play it inside on the 3-pin and missed. $10 for Joe. And call it a $6 for Jim, so that's spare for Steve Daniell. Good enough for another skin for him.
I should have missed it. I tried to do solid. I would have missed it right.
I've heard Joe Ashline doing a little post-mortem on that last shot.
A few war stories there about that 7th frame. Oh, it's a tough break for John. 4, 7, 6, and 10. 2 pieces of wood in front of the 6 and 10 could help. Steve Daniell for the spare, no. It was 7 on his spare.
$10 for John, 9 for Steve.
Yeah. Come on, Jimmy.
So the floor is open for Jim Flynn and Joe Ashline.
Yeah.
Jim Flynn very light on the head pin, but got a pretty nice mix. Not much of a leave, though. Oh, Joe Ashline
All right, Joe. Right on, buddy.
leaves another miraculous 5-pin. The wood is moving around for Jim Flynn, and it's moved deeper, which probably doesn't help him very much, but it's still jockeying back and forth. He'd like it to stay right there.
Well, double piece of wood, I think you're going to have to cap the wood on the left-hand tip. I don't think if you go low, you're going to carry it. Watch. No.
Nope. Spare could win the skin here for Joe Ashline on the single. He's right on it. So give him the $25 skin in the 8th. 10 for Jim Flynn. We've only had one carryover. That was in the first box. $25 skin available here in the 9th. John Janowicz has been open 5 boxes in a row, and now he chops out the 2-pin. Steve Daniell's try for another mark. Yes. Oh, nice out for a 9 by John Janowicz. Joe Ashline on a spare. Just 2.
Well, after all said and done, just a 9-pin left for Jim.
Jim Flynn for the spare. Watch out. No, he got it off the cap. That will cause a carryover here. Joe Ashline bails out with 9. And the 10th box of this first game will be worth $75. See, the score is still very close. John Janowicz would love to put a mark up here in the 10th, just to draw himself a little bit more into the picture. Steve Daniell.
That was on a spare. That's 5 fill on his spare in the 9th.
John turned that one over a little too much. Same thing he did last box. Ooh, Steve was going for all of it, and he'll settle for a 6 box. 130. And John takes a 9, 101. Jim Flynn to work on that spare in the 9th here. Thin, still mixing.
Come on, you.
6 fill.
Come on, Joe. Here we go, buddy.
Oh my, Joe knocks the 1 and the 8 out. Last box, it was the 2 and the 4. Well, it'll be Steve Daniell in the lead.
Again.
After game 1. Hey, how about this skin? A 9 is good right now for John Janowicz. There's a 9, which could cause a carryover unless Joe can work this out for a 10. It's gonna be a tough shot. Not to be, so that is a carryover in the 10th. The first box of game 2 will be worth $85 after this break. You see the scores from Game 1. Steve Daniell in the lead by 3 over Jim Flynn. We'll be back in a minute. Here's the prize money winning from Game 1. A little lower than normal because we have a big carryover going into Game 2. Everybody on the board except for John Janowicz, and he's going to try and change that here in the first box of Game 2, which will be worth $85 on the carryover. Whoever wins this skin will take over the lead in money winnings for the show. John gets that one into the pocket.
This doesn't seem to be finishing for him, though. That ball looked like it was in the pocket. Didn't get much of a mixing action at all. Leaves himself the 2, 4, 7, and also the 10.
And just off the cap and no action. John from Lowell, Mass. Works as a letter carrier at the Bill Ricca Post Office. John and his wife Margie have 2 children, Christopher and Alicia. Christopher's 5 and Alicia's 3, and the whole family's here and
So we got the battle of the postmen now.
enjoying the action. That's right, you're absolutely correct. Steve Daniell also.
Ask him who delivers the mail the fastest.
Steve Daniell, our leader after Game 1, also works for the U.S. Postal Service. Steve is from Salem, New Hampshire. He and his wife, Deborah, have a daughter, Crystal. And Steve does a lot of bowling right here in Londonderry. Well, no marks yet here in this first box. We had a carryover with 9s in the 10th. Game 1, we get 2 8s right now.
8's looking good. 8's looking good, yeah. I should have had 9.
I would be stunned, I think, if Joe Ashline had less than an 8 in this box.
Not going to be from lack of effort, I'll tell you. These pins probably are shaking down there right now.
Come on.
Oh, big kick out on the 7. Yep. Changes everything. Legitimate chance for the mark now.
Well, if Tom Morgan was here, he'd be telling Joe that 8s are good, Joe.
And there's the spare.
Spares are better.
But he's got to wait out Jim Flynn to see if he wins the skin. The 3, 6, and 10. $85 on the line in this box. Jim's on the head pin, and he'll shoot for a spare. Of course, he's got 2 big rooters in John and Steve right now. Big fans of Jim Flynn. Oh, and he's got it. Causing another carryover. The second box now worth $95. John Janowicz.
This time a little higher on the head pin and still not going to get the break. Look at those 2 pins wobbling. Although with the wood in between, if you're on that 3 pin, it's going to jump towards the 4 and 7. Could have a shot. Not quite. A little too much of the 3 pin.
$9 for John. Take a second here to remind you about our upcoming schedule here on our Saturday program. Next Saturday at 12 noon, we'll have our last skins show of the season. But that's far from the end of the bowling for the season here on Saturdays. 2 weeks from today, a special rebroadcast of a great singles match from Christmas Day, Paul Berger against Glenn Shattuck. And then starting 3 weeks from today, Saturday, May 6th at noon, and running for 4 weeks, the New Hampshire State Candlepin All Events Championship, featuring the women's semifinals in the first week, then the women's final the second week, and then the men will take over the last 2 weeks. And Steve converts that for the 10, a little help from the ball. Staying on the lane.
Come on, Joey.
John says that could be the one, Steve.
So again, next Saturday we'll have skins as usual. 2 weeks from today, Paul Berger against Glenn Shattuck in this Saturday noon time slot. And 3 weeks from today, our coverage of the state tournament begins.
Oh, an 8-pin drop. That's the good news. Bad news is the 7 and the 8 left. Piece of wood though out in front. Let's see if Joe can maneuver that somehow. No.
Nice off. Get the 10, get the 10. Right on.
$10 for Joe.
It's all up to Peter Flynn. Any kind of a Jim Flynn. Peter Flynn's in the audience. A combination of spare or strike, and he would win this $90 skin.
Oh, there it is. $95 for Jim Flynn with that strike. Taking away all of the suspense on a possible spare shot.
More important, he takes over not a commanding lead, but does increase his lead somewhat. Boy, the 4, 8, and 10 left for John. No wood, going to play the way on the outside, a little farther left on that 4-pin.
$8 for John. Quick reminder, too, about tomorrow at noon here on
Here we go, come on.
the Winds of New England. It'll be our last qualifying match for the 7th annual Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions. And I'd say this will be a pretty good match. You want to tune in for this one.
Here we go, Steve.
Our number 2 seed, Gary Carrington, against our number 1 seed, Jack Ray. That'll be tomorrow at noon from Park Place Lanes in Wyndham. Spare for Steve Daniell in the third. His third box worth $10.
Come on, Joey, what do you say? Big one here.
Joe Ashline with a strike. Here it is again, real fast.
Well, if Jim Flynn is going to have this, he'd have a double strike as he's working on a strike now.
Come on, come on.
Let's see.
Pretty close.
Oh, thank you.
Joe just thrilled to get that $10 skin.
Right on it.
And the spare for Jim Flynn, 20 more for him.
My strike was worth 10, yours worth 95.
I didn't know Joe was an accountant.
Somebody told him.
And John Janowicz carries a couple of extra pins this time.
Tough piece of wood right next to that 3-pin, though.
Nope.
Just sliding by on the left.
Jim Flynn going spare, strike, spare to start this second game has opened up a nice lead for himself in total pinfall. He's 19 pins ahead
All right,
of
come on, let's go.
this man, Steve Daniell, in second. Joe Ashline running a close third with a strike up.
Come on. All right, come on, buddy.
7-pin drop, 2, 4, 6 left for Steve. No wood. Going to try to split the 2 and the 4. Oh, very close. And again, Joe Ashline's going to get up there with no mark facing him.
2 9s so far.
Come on, Joe, double up. Come
In
on.
this fourth box worth $15.
Good try, buddy. Nice one.
And Joe working on the strike.
Come on, Joe. All right, bring it on, Joe. All right, run it down. Right on.
The spare, a little too far outside. More than he wanted to go. You wrap the head pin
Give it a 10.
around the 3.
Well, you never know. A pair of 9s are up there. You want the 10. At least take the lead for the skin.
There it is. Well, Jim Flynn is perfect so far in this game. Spare, strike, spare.
10, I'll make it.
Another mark would steal this skin.
Come on, Jim.
It's a 5 fill. Going to be a very difficult spare, though. Does he have it? That close.
Come on, get out of the way, Wood. Get out of the way. Get out of the way.
Because everybody but Joe wants to see him make this 10 bucks. It's Joe's 10 that's sitting up there. Tough wood. He's going to have to hit it, I think. And it is a roadblock.
I thought you had it, Bill. I would have been playing the same place.
Joe Ashline with the $15.
Jimmy, don't worry, I'm fine. Guy takes 95 bucks out of my pocket. He's my friend now.
John Janowicz gets a kick this time.
Finally breaks a pin up. A split up, I should say. Leaves a 4-7. A couple pieces of wood out in front.
The spare, yep. First mark of his second game for John Janowicz. And he's accepting high fives all around. He's going to high five the crowd, too.
Come on.
Steve Daniell off to the right.
One, 2, 7, 8, and 9 pins. For the spare.
Oh, great
boy.
shot. That's a terrific shot. Creating a possible carryover unless either Joe or Jim throws a strike. Joe Ashline.
All right, come on, Joe. Show the shot. Show the shot.
Good battle going right now for second place between Steve and Joe. Steve with his spare. Joe comes up just short.
Go get it.
$10.
Nice try. Here, Rob. Bring it high. Come on, Jimmy. Get back in the pocket again.
Jim Flynn had 3 marks to open the game. He was open in the 4th. Big first ball to win the skin if it goes. Nope. It'll be a carryover. One of the bowlers just said, that's enough. They'd be thrilled to see him get the spare.
Nice cover.
Absolutely. 3 spares in the 5th. Good battle going here, and we've got a carryover skin. The 6 box will be worth $30 when we return to Londonderry after these words. John Janowicz working on a spare. Just catching the head pin. Takes 7.
Decent fill, but a difficult spare leave in the 3, 9, and 10 with no wood. So, pin you usually worry about is the 9. Slides by the 3.
$9. Steve Daniell now working on a spare and trying to not only increase his lead over Joe Ashline for second place, but try to threaten Jim Flynn for first place. But that one slipped out of his hand in just 3. Oh, I thought he had just the head pin there for a minute. And a 9.
And again, pair of 9s up facing Joe Ashline for the skin.
It's a carryover worth $30. And the strike for Joe Ashline. And there it is again with the 6-pin kicking out. Jim Flynn now working on a spare. I'm sure he'd love to throw a strike to have the skin, but more importantly, he'd like to have a good leave. So the skin goes to Joe Ashline for $30. And Jim can't quite convert.
That close to another mark, and he's had 4 out of 5 boxes marks. Now it's 4 out of 6. Still maintains his lead. 20 pins over Steve and 26 over Joe. John needs some marks quickly now to get back into the total pinfall race. He's at 161.
Oh, big first ball. Doesn't finish in the middle, though, with the 5 and the 9. This is the 7th box, worth $25, and John just slides by it.
Gives him 70 through 7. Steve Daniell just thinking, put a mark up. I think his mind has shifted more towards the total pinfall now than the skins. Leaves just a 6-pin.
It's a tough thing, this format. You'd have to think, Steve Daniell sliding by. It's a tough thing because you obviously want to win some money and do well in that regard, but then again, you also have to be concerned about total pinfall.
So you can come back next week and win more money.
That is the idea.
Chance for Joe Ashline working on a strike to overtake Steve for second.
Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's a double.
Double strike.
This is about what he did last week. Last 3 boxes, he had spare double strike. Started a few boxes early this week.
Just got enough of that 4-pin. I thought that was going to stay up.
Same thing here.
Joe will take the skin unless Jim Flynn can match.
Back on.
Nope. $25 skin for Joe.
And a 10 gives Jim 99, 226, so you can see. So still 16 pins ahead of Joe Ashline and 21 ahead of Steve Daniell.
John will take the spare, but he needs strikes. He hasn't won a skin yet. Maybe this will be the one. And we still need a reset on lane 30, so while we're waiting for that problem to be corrected, why don't we grab a timeout here on Candlepin Skins, and we'll be back. Steve Daniell will be up in the 8th box when we return to the Londonderry Bowling Center after this timeout.
All right, Steve tries to pick up this 4 horsemen, just missing.
As we were away, we took care of that mechanical problem. Steve Daniell threw his first ball before we got back and couldn't convert the 4 horsemen, so it's a 9 box for Steve.
And 214, as you see the total. So now all of a sudden Joe Ashline getting up working on a double will take over the lead, or the overall lead.
Come on!
Oh,
Especially with a triple.
Triple strike for Joe Ashline.
Come on, Jimmy, do it here. Same thing. Same thing.
Needless to say, Joe Ashline takes the lead
Come on back.
in total pinfall. And he's just won himself another $25 skin as well.
So the battle now for second is between Steve and Jim. And Jim leading by 21.
John Janowicz working on a spare. Gets it into the pocket, but very thin. Just 4. $7. Steve Daniell now. 21 pins behind second place, so he needs big marks. That was almost a big mark right there.
Yeah. He definitely needs marks of any kind. Strikes would have been better, but certainly can't afford to be open. Gotta hurry.
Nope.
Another one.
We should throw a real one.
10. Well, let's see if Joe Ashline can keep it going here. He's got 3 strikes in a row.
All 3 of them were for
All right,
skins.
do it again, Joe. Do it again.
This is a $25 skin here in the 9th.
Come on!
A little too full this time.
Come on, Wood, stay on
All
there.
right, 2-1. Come on. Make something happen.
Slap happy, baby.
He's had 5 marks in this game, 4 of them strikes.
All right, on to 10. On to 10.
Yeah, nice bid.
Already over 150 in the 9th. Plan on seeing Joe here next week.
Come on.
He'll be here. A couple of 10 boxes now up here in the 9th.
Carry it over, man. Give me something. I need another commercial. Come on.
Jim Flynn
Come on, Jimmy.
is probably safe for next week, but you never know. Somebody could do to him what he did last
That's
week.
right. I was thinking the same thing. Live by the sword, die by the sword.
He recorded a double strike to stay alive last week in the final box, and if Steve Daniell were to do the same thing, things could change. But going into the final box, Jim has a 20-pin lead over Steve Daniell for second. For John Janowicz, he would just love to get this final skin of the day, which now, because of the carryover, is worth $75. John has yet to win a skin today. The 2 10s by Steve and Joe carry us over to the 10th, worth $75. Nope. Well, John's only hope now is that 2 of the other guys create a carryover. He'll take 9, 100, and a 201. Steve Daniell now for his final box. He needs to throw a strike here. Nope. So it's going to be Joe Ashline and Jim Flynn again advancing. They'll both be back next week for their 3rd week in a row. And of course, the 2 bowlers that finish 1-2 in total pinfall next week will advance to our first show in the fall.
It's true. 104 and 234. Jim Flynn already at 244, so as Doug said, they're in, but we have a little matter of a $50, well, actually $75 skin.
And remember, all 4 could still be alive if there's a carryover, and a 10 is good right now for Steve Daniell, and Joe Ashline will be fortunate to work this out for a 10. Spread eagle plus the 9.
Oh,
look
trying.
out! Look out! Still going to be a tough $10. $9. We apologize, incidentally, for our audio problems. We are working on them, trying to correct them. Appreciate your patience.
161 for Joe and 275 for 2-game total. Not bad for day's work. Well, Jim Flynn needs a spare or a strike to win the $75 skin, or a 10 to carry it over.
Well,
possibilities with the wood. I see the 9-pin as probably the problem pin, but let's see.
Yes. Oh, you got it.
Well, this is a big pin. This is for the carryover.
That's right. Steve Daniell has the 10 up there. And there it is, the carryover. So we will keep right on going here to try and settle this last $75 skin. John Janowicz and Steve Daniell will try first. 127 for Jim Flynn. That's the same he had in the first game. 2-game total, 254. Joe Ashline and Jim Flynn finish 1 and 2 for the second week in a row. They'll be back next week, and there's the same leave that we just saw. Steve Daniell with an even tougher leave. John waiting for the wood. The wood could help determine the shot here.
Well, you want to catch a piece of the wood if you can. It might be too far right, though.
Well, neither of these two guys will have a mark. 8 for John. 10 for Steve. That knocks John out. So John is through for the day. He'll take home $50 as a consolation prize for qualifying on the show for the first time.
Determined look on Joe's face.
Look out. Nope.
Ooh.
It'll be the triangle left for Joe Ashline to shoot at. Jim Flynn, well, he may have a go at this one. The 2, 5, and 7.
And we just have the 10 box posted, and Joe misses the triangle. Jim Flynn.
Oh, he missed it. Well, somebody's got to get a 10 now to create the further carryover. There's the 10 for Joe, so he's still alive.
This is important for Jim to stay in the match, and he'll carry over as well.
So we'll go 1 box at a time now. Steve Daniell will go first, 1 box at a time, and try and settle it in our second overtime box. John Janowicz out of it. The other 3 guys still alive for $75 in this last carryover.
And they're having to work for this 75.
Come on, Steve, show the shot.
Oh boy.
Show us one here, come on.
Actually, looking at the score sheet here now, Dan, we haven't had a mark since back in the 7th box when Joe threw the 3rd of his triple strike.
All right, Joe, come on.
Yeah, that 9 box might win it. Who knows? The way things are going right now. Not. Nah. I think Joe's got other things on his mind, and I'm sure Jim is going to be up there firing away. Let's see. Oh, shoot another triangle.
Same triangle. Same one.
I don't think Joe will take as much time before he shoots at this one. Whoops, a little hop. Took a little bit off the ball.
Well, he's got his 9. He can put himself in the lead with this pin.
All right, come on.
So that eliminates Steve. Jim can do it all himself. Spare or strike, it's his.
$75 on the line here, this last skin of the day.
Come on, Jim. Come on, keep going.
And there it is, the strike for Jim Flynn. $75. We take a timeout. We'll be back on Candlepin Skins in a minute. Well, the final scores were a little different today for Joe Ashline and Jim Flynn, but the order of finish is the same. Joe and Jim will both be returning for a third week next week, as once again Joe finishes with the top score of the day, Jim Flynn second. Steve Daniell and John Janowicz will have to come back and try again next season, and here are the money winnings. Jim Flynn, actually the big winner today, with $205, taking that last $75 skin. Joe Ashline with also a pretty good payday, $140. And Joe and Jim working as a team right now. Of course, no team competition here, but they'll both be back third week in a row next week.
That's right. And poor Joe, he had that strike ball working. And when he gets a strike ball working, he's Katie by the door.
All right, next week, when Jim and Joe come back, they will be joined by Fred Ranella of Hampton, New Hampshire, and Paul Willits of Framingham, Massachusetts. A quick reminder, coming up tomorrow at 12 noon here on the Winds of New England, our last qualifying match for the Tournament of Champions. It's our number 2 seed number 2 seed Gary Carrington against our top seed Jack Ray. We invite you to be here for that. That's tomorrow at noon here on the Winds. Until then, for Dan Murphy and the whole crew, bye-bye, everybody.